Here we are in another episode of Mama Untold Thoughts. I have two special ladies with me, both who I've only met virtually, believe it or not. I have Richa with me and I have Smita with me. And another fun fact, they are both doctors. So hello, ladies. How are you doing?
Hi, well, thank you
Good.
for having us.
Yes, thanks for joining me on this conversation. I thought it'd be fun to mention that we've only ever met via social media. Richa, you're in Toronto, not too far from where I am, but Smitha, you're out on the West Coast. You're in LA.
Yeah, but I feel like I've known you for a long time since
I know.
like our first conversation was so easy. I don't know. It's a connection.
It is. It is a connection, and it's definitely like, the universe's way of bringing the three of us together to have, meaningful and valuable conversations that are relevant, in terms of what's happening in our world today. We're still in quarantine. Richa, I know we spoke like 3 weeks ago. We recorded something, and
Yep.
we're still here, but rightfully so. We kind of spoke about this offline about how there's so many restrictions that are easing right now. And I don't know about you, mamas, but my anxiety is actually a bit heightened because of the restrictions easing. So I don't know if Smita or Richa, one of whoever wants to kind of jump in and chime in on your take on these restrictions that are easing.
Well, for me, I mean, the easing restrictions kind of makes me anxious because I know that for me working in the hospital every day, that this could potentially make it riskier for me at my job. So easing restrictions directly affects my job. And every time I see people congregating without masks and mass gatherings, I think about what I may be doing in the future in the hospital. So
Yeah.
that directly affects me. And I don't know what the future is going to hold, but it definitely makes me uneasy. But we're still socially isolating. We're still wearing masks. We're still doing everything we can. But I know everyone wants to get back to their normal life. I get it, but I'm worried about it for sure.
Yeah. Richa, how about you?
And I certainly echo that sentiment. Even not on the work aspect, even just going outside for a walk, I've found it to be so anxiety provoking, thinking about door handles that you've touched and, then touching the stroller and then you're thinking, okay, I need to wash my hands again. And, oh, my face is itchy. So now I need to wash my hands again. And just, all the thoughts that go through your mind is preoccupied at all times. Like it's almost like you can't enjoy something. I don't know if this is how you feel too, but I feel like, I have moments where I can enjoy and then it brings it right back at some point. I'm like, okay, we're living in a pandemic. Reminder.
Well, that's just it. And Rich, I like how you posted this. I think it was in your stories a week ago that people are thinking that this is over, given all these restrictions that are now being lifted, right?
Yeah.
And it's true, right? We had gone out to, we drove out to a park, and thankfully there was no one at the park, so it was just kind of like us there. And I was in the car, and it's true, like I had like, there was something in my eye and I was like, oh my God, I didn't wash my hands yet, but I haven't touched anything. Should I still wash? Like, do I still need to wash my hands? You know what I mean? I feel like there's like this cloud of paranoia almost. And, it's unfortunate because I think, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is kind of the way going forward, right? That we have to take these precautions in our everyday life, and that normal that we think we're going back into is not necessarily going to be that you know what I mean? It's going to be a new normal,
it's a
right?
new normal. Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
I think the United States is different in different areas. Like in California where I live, we're still required to wear masks to go to the grocery store. Like there's still a line of people trying to get in. But in the parks, I see people congregating with like their friends and having drinks and stuff. But then when I see my friends in Texas, they're like going to bars, having parties, you know, it's just such a different, it's so different across all of our nation.
Yeah.
And I'm just worried as to how this is going to play out, you know, in 2-3 weeks from now. But we're just trying to do the best we can. And I worry about our children. That's my biggest concern.
Yeah, and our parents as well. It's like,
I know. And I think even with, you know, they're talking about potentially opening daycares here in like June, July. And I don't know. I don't think I'm going to be sending my little one to daycare, you know, and I see the both of you nodding, and that validates my feelings.
Actually, mine are going to daycare in July.
Yeah.
I'm running out of childcare options.
Yeah.
I've had babysitters. I never had a babysitter watch my children until this pandemic hit.
Wow.
And, you know, I've always been so nervous. This is just my personal thing.
Yeah.
I've always been so nervous about having someone alone with my child. And when this pandemic hit, I had no choice.
Yeah.
And it turned out beautifully. They were wonderful. But I've actually run out of childcare options. And starting in July, they're both going back to daycare. And I'm confident in that daycare in the sense that there's enough social distancing and they have enough measures. But I honestly have no other options. I don't know what people do when both parents are working. You know, I really don't know how they're going to manage that.
Yeah, it's a very tricky situation for a lot of people.
Yeah. And I think like you're both kind of in the same situation, right? Because Richa, you'll be looking into childcare as well, because you and your husband are both as well in the medical field.
Yeah, so our baby is still on a wait list for daycare, and I wonder if with us being essential workers, she'll be bumped on that list.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, with everything going on right now, that would be, so he's going back to work next week.
Wow.
So I would need childcare next week. So it's definitely not happening next week. So I have to now work from home,
Mm-hmm.
and that really significantly impacts, you know, patient care, patient flow in the clinic. You know, it affects the team. So it's a very challenging time, this adjustment period.
Yeah. I know we jumped right into, oh,
That's
sorry, go ahead.
those employers letting you do that though.
Yeah, they're so wonderful. So the way that it works in Ontario, at least, is that physicians in the community, we're all independent practitioners. So we set our hours, we set our you know, schedules and everything. It's all kind of up to you.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it's that feeling that you can't be there for your patients, right? That makes it really challenging.
Yeah. I know we jumped right into COVID talk because it's definitely it's definitely you know, it's relevant right now, and we're all feeling the different emotions coming with this pandemic as well. So that's my fault, ladies. I'm sorry. I should have.
Hey, there's like a constant COVID cloud over our heads.
There really is. And, you know, you add in kind of the lack of sleep that us parents are feeling, the lack of energy, and all these other different, like I said, emotions that we're feeling. It just kind of, it consumes us, right? It really does consume us. And so I want to backtrack a little bit. I want to rewind here, and I want to talk a little bit about the both of you respectively. So Smita, tell everyone a little bit about yourself. Where, I know I mentioned you're in LA, but what do you do in LA is what I want to know.
Well, I'm not a movie star.
But you live in that area, right?
But I live around there. That's great.
Yeah.
So yes, I live in LA. I've been here for the last 11 years. I'm a pediatrician, a general pediatrician. And I work for the County of Los Angeles. So I work for a program that helps to build resilient kids. So I know that's really broad.
Yeah.
But I really enjoy my job. I grew up in the Middle East and Texas, and I did my residency in New York City, but I've been living in LA for 11 years, and now I consider myself an Angelino, even though I still call myself a New Yorker a lot. but I've never lived anywhere as long as I've lived in LA.
Yeah. And you're married and you have 2 little ones, right? Yes.
I have 2 young, beautiful daughters, and I've been, oh my God, how long have I been married for? I've been married also for 11 years. So
I
I
know.
tend to forget I'm really bad. So
I feel like once you're over like the 10-year, like
yeah,
does it really matter how many years?
you're
Or
like, all right, you're just here now. So.
yeah. Too
So,
funny. And Richa, let's hear a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I am also a community pediatrician, so general pediatrician, but I work primarily in the community. I was also doing hospitalist work just, until last year. And I went on mat leave and came back to essentially community care. So I work in 2 very different communities. So that kind of makes it very interesting for me. And I have a broad population of like lower socioeconomic status, people of different races, people of lower health literacy, and then I have physician parents, and I have higher socioeconomic status, and that kind of thing, right? So that variety is kind of what makes me pretty happy. But yeah, it's kind of nice. And I was born in India. Moved to Canada when I was 3 years old, and lived in Toronto for most of my life. And I actually went to med school in England. So I lived in England for almost 7 years.
Wow.
And came back, did residency in London, Ontario, and now I'm in Hamilton, and just all over the place.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And you have a little one as well?
Yeah, so she is now 11 months old, and she is the apple of our eyes. We are kind of obsessed with her.
Yeah.
I guess
I
that's
hear you.
normal.
Yeah. Totally normal. And you know what? I just actually realized something else that we all have in common is that we all have girls.
Yeah.
And I know people are kind of like, what are you talking about right now? But I'll get into what the next common thing is between all of us. But I kind of want to talk about the work that the 2 of you are doing around children's mental health and the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. So maybe Smita, if you want to start, and then Richa add in, or whoever wants to kind of take the mic on this one. But I just thought it was so important to talk about this because a lot of our kids are feeling the effects of this pandemic and being in isolation for now, I don't know, what are we, week 9 or 10, I think. I've seen it in my little one. I can see, I think it was a happy moment at first that, yay, we're all together, we're spending time together, and we're bonding, and there's a lot of quality time that's ultimately being spent together. But now I kind of see like she'll trace back if I say no to something, like, no, we can't go out here, she'll always trace it back to the virus. Oh, is it because of the virus, mama? So we know that our little ones are picking up on the effects of this pandemic. So I want to hear from the 2 of you, the work that you're doing, and how you're trying to help parents and provide resources to parents.
Yeah, so initially for us, it started off the same way, like, oh, we'll get to spend time together. But even though both of us still have to go to work,
Yeah.
For us, it was a big adjustment because it was the first time I had to find someone to look after my kids at home. First time I left my kids with someone alone in the house. I've never even had a babysitter alone in the house with them.
Wow.
So it was a scary thing for both myself and them. Luckily, that part turned out fine. I think the lack of socialization for my very social kids really has affected them. in a very tragic way, I would say. They've started acting out a lot. And so I found myself trying to implement a lot of the things I talk to families about resilience and coping. And I'm like, wow, this is like me trying to do it in real life now, with my own children. Unfortunately, my children have also experienced the loss of their grandmother to COVID about 4 weeks ago.
Oh my goodness.
And so for them, it's a little bit more heightened, So my older daughter is 6 years old, and so she's understanding a bit more. And so she is not only concerned about coronavirus outside, but coronavirus for her family and how it's affected my family. And are you going to be okay, Mom? Are you going to be okay, Dad? So I think the biggest thing that we have done for our kids is to have consistent routines. This may not be what every family wants to do, but recently we moved their bed into our room. And so we all have a bedtime routine together as a family where we all read books together. We all sing a song together. We all say I'm not a very religious person, but we say an affirmation instead of a prayer. So we say, I am safe, I am loved, I am capable, I am confident. Those 4 sentences, I'm safe, I'm loved, I'm capable, I'm confident. All of us repeat it together, and then they sleep on their bed, we on their mattress in our room, and we all go to bed together. And I think that's made a huge difference, because it's not only connecting us as a family, but it's a routine that they do every day that's safe and predictable. And I think that's how we've dealt with it. Also, my kids are extremely social, and so we have had a lot of Zoom play dates, a lot of connections with family every day. This is the first time I've got my daughter an iPad. She's never had an iPad. And so I told her that this is how you connect to FaceTime.
Yeah.
And so during the day when I'm not there, she'll FaceTime her grandma.
Oh.
And on her own, like with the babysitter. And so she talks to her. She used to talk to her my mother. She used to talk to her grandma probably once in 2-3 weeks. Now she talks to her grandmother every day, because she FaceTimes, every day. And I think as much as this pandemic has affected our family in very negative ways, it's also brought a lot of positivity, a lot of connection. We've grown as a family. We've learned how to deal with grief. We've learned how to come together. We've learned how to say affirmations and connect with family members that we hadn't connected with before. So that's our family. I'll let you take the mic, Richa.
That's actually really nice. It's a nice positive sort of silver lining, right? I think from that standpoint in our family, my baby's only 11 months old, so she hasn't really had that sort of feeling of a loss of something she once had kind of thing. But my concern initially was that she was starting to develop separation anxiety. So I was bringing her to meet my family much more frequently, trying to get her out to these centers. They're called early on centers where children can be exposed to other children, socialize and all of that. And boom, the pandemic hit right at that time. And so she was sort of robbed of that experience. And over the last couple of months, I've been just trying to make sure she is becoming socialized in whatever way we can. So we take her out to the balcony, we take her out for walks, we make her talk to other children when we're outside, or we give her the opportunity to, force her to talk to other kids.
Right.
But so that's been interesting, and surprisingly, she's sort of social, and that's the beauty of children, right? They develop, even no matter what we provide for them, they're going to develop skills, right? We can do what we can to enhance those skills, but they're still going to develop those skills, right? In general. So that's been interesting to see. And on the front of using FaceTime chats and Zooms and things like that, I've been actually pleasantly surprised, because I didn't think she would be able to recognize people because we don't really socialize kids that way, right? So I don't think there are any studies to look at how children are socialized on screens, right? But she knows my parents, you know, she calls them by name, she knows the difference between the different people who are calling, she kisses the phone, she gives flying kisses, like all of the things you expect normally socialized children to behave like, she's doing despite being essentially raised in front of a screen, right? So that's been interesting. And so on the work front, I sort of am recommending similar things to what Smith has been suggesting that, doing it at home. Routine has been, I think, the most important thing to implement for the patients that I've seen. Having that sort of like schedule every day and it's consistent, and kids are creatures of routine, right? They need routine to feel in control, they need it to feel safe. And so I think that's been like the most effective thing that parents have been doing. And when it comes to anxiety, panic attacks, being fearful of loss, I've been sort of, I mean, I guess it's really done independently with each child, but giving them sort of tools that they can use to get themselves out of, whatever funk they're in their heads, right? And so, so far, I think it's been working, and I've been regularly checking in on them. So I do sort of every week check-ins to just say, how's it been working this week for you? And these kids have been really resilient. It's so impressive what children are able to do. They're actually, I find, and I don't know if you guys find this too, but much more resilient than adults in a lot of respects, right?
For sure. 110%. Yes. I see it more. And they're very quick to adapt to situations, right? Like, and that's just because they take on the situation, they don't have all these different doubts in their minds or little voices telling them to, think through the process before you actually, make a decision. Yes. Right. And that's the beauty of kids, right? And it's so innocent, but as we grow older and we go through life's experiences and we develop these, sometimes they can be barriers in allowing us to do, to just kind of take that stride or take that jump. And so it's very admirable when you see this in kids and how quick they are to adapt to situations and how resilient they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm so happy that the two of you are doing, this work around mental health as well when it comes to children. So keep it up, keep it going. And Richa, you just launched a YouTube channel as well, just to talk more on, really, I think it's anything related to kids, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So it's related to the general health of children, but during the pandemic, I sort of have a special series because I have been finding, parents have a lot of questions, and that they have more time to actually spend with their kids right now, to actually see some of the things that they would otherwise be missing when the children are at school, for example. So I started this series called What to Expect, which is kind of about anticipatory guidance in a way. So, things like, okay, your child now has abdominal pain. What are the questions that your doctor's going to want to know? So that if you think about when you go into the doctor's office, you have a very limited time, right? So if you're spending a lot of time talking about trying to tease out the history, then you're losing time that you could be spending talking about the management, right? So if you kind of know before you go in, what kind of things is my doctor going to ask me, what kind of things to look out for, then you'll have those answers ready, right? And so that was kind of my aim with the What to Expect, because I've been finding through telephone conversations and video conversations that things, some things are more efficient, some things are more tricky. And I just thought it would be a useful thing during the pandemic for parents to have. And then moving forward, it's going to be more about like developmental assessments and then general health topics and things like that. So
yeah, no, I love it. Congratulations on launching that. And Smitha, I know you're posting like every day on, topics related to kids and mental health. So truly I thank the two of you for this is like, it's extra work for you, for the both of you, right? You have your day jobs that you're doing, and and also thank you for being essential and frontline workers and keeping all of us safe and working in some really unprecedented times. I know a lot that word's really heavily used, but it's the truth, right? That's the times that we're in right now. So thank you to both of you.
Well,
Oh,
thank
thank
you.
you for your support.
I would say that social media has been kind of a lifesaver for me during this time. I wasn't really that active before. I mean, my Instagram was like, oh, I'll do it when I have time.
Yeah.
But now I feel like it's just now more than ever, people want this information that we're sharing. And that's how I connected with you two.
Yeah.
So I feel more connected to people than ever before, and I feel more passionate about my work than before.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful that for social media that I can share things that make me feel passionate about what I'm doing, and I take back to work. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've
And
enjoyed it.
And I totally echo that as well, in the sense that I actually felt this loss of connection when the pandemic started, and it was like almost like I needed connection with people, and it's kind of saved me in that sense too.
Yeah. No, it's true. So social media has just been such a powerful tool for many of us. So yay, I'm glad this connection
Yeah, so
happened. So we need to talk about what this other thing is that we all have in common. So everyone knows I'm married to a Caucasian man. Richa, you're also married to a Caucasian man, and Smitha, you're married to a Black man. And so we're all in interracial marriages, which was something else that was, that wasn't the driving force to like us talking and connecting, but it was definitely like a topic that we all related to because we understood where we all came from in terms of how we had to fight for our relationships, how we have to now navigate these interracial relationships with our kids, right, and raising kids in this environment. So, Smith, I wanna hear from you first, and I also want to know, and you share as much as you're comfortable with. I don't want to, I don't want to impose and make you share too much. But I know when we spoke offline that you did have some family members who were not happy with your relationship, and so tell us about it. Tell us how it all started and how it all kind of came about.
Yeah, so I got married, oh my God, again, 11 years ago.
We're not going to show this to your husband, just in case.
You don't remember. But we were actually dating about 4 years before we got married, and it was a very difficult time, I will say. I'm not trying to throw my parents under the bus. They are in love with my husband now. They're best friends, and they will tell you every single day that they made a mistake and they're very sorry. They will apologize.
Aw.
So, but at the time, uh, they did not think that I should be marrying a Black man. And they had never told me, I mean, I did not grow up thinking that. They had never expressed that to me. I was never raised to look at anyone differently.
Yeah.
Except when I told them who I wanted to marry, and they were not happy about that. And so we did go through a very tumultuous time in our relationship. And I was telling you, I was crying in the middle of Applebee's, like randomly, I mean, it was years of struggle.
Yeah.
And one day, so let me just preface by saying that my husband was a chief resident and I was the intern. That's how we met. And it was all approved. My program director approved it. So nothing scandalous there, and it was nothing like Grey's Anatomy.
That's exactly what popped into my mind.
Yeah, nothing happened in call rooms. Like, it was very boring. I mean, I would love that, but it was very boring. So it was like, it was all approved.
Yeah.
Like, very professional.
Yes.
Anyway, so that's how we met. But the fact that he was not an Indian person was very troubling to my parents. And so when we were dating, we had decided that we would just date forever, that we would just never get married, because I was like, my parents are never going to approve this, and I don't want to have a wedding where my parents are not at. So let's just date forever, and that's fine. Yeah. And so that's what we decided. And then one year, he was my team president, so he made my schedule. So one year, I was on call on Thanksgiving, and I asked him, like, oh, so what are you going to do on Thanksgiving? I'm on call. And he was like, well, I'm going to be in Houston. And I was like, that's where my parents live. Yeah. What are you doing in Houston? Yeah. And he's like, I'm visiting your parents. And so he had actually called my mom, and my mom, who's very proper, was like, sure, you can come over. And so he flew to Houston and stayed with my parents for 3 nights alone. And I probably called that house like 50,000 times to make sure he's still alive.
So he just went there to, like, what? Just to, like, ask
to talk to them. Okay. I mean, he showed up in a suit and with his resume.
With his resume?
Yes. And my brother picked him up from the airport, and he got to my parents' house, and he gave them his resume and with his suit.
Oh my God. I just have this image in my mind.
He's like,
this I was like, all right, if that's what you got to do, just do that.
Yeah.
And I do not know what happened that weekend. I don't know. They probably talked a lot about all the problems with me. Probably they bonded over all of that. Like, this is how she is.
Yeah.
And at the end of the weekend, my dad was like, all right. That was Thanksgiving weekend. So my dad called me and was like, would you like to get married next Thanksgiving? And we got married 1 year later from that meeting.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, what my parents thought he was, they thought he was like Tupac or Biggie, like the posters in my room. Mm-hmm. And who cares if he was? Okay, I would still be proud. Yeah. But their stereotype of what a Black person was vastly different from what they encountered. And I think they realized, that, we've been programmed to believe that Black people are a certain way when they're not. Yeah. And they're actually very different. Yeah. And so they made a total 180. And now they're the biggest champions for Black lives. I mean, the biggest champions. They've totally turned completely around. And if there is any hope for people, I would say it is my parents.
But that's such a relevant point, right? Because given what's happening right now in our world, and there's a lot of uproar, as there should be, on not only just in the streets and the riots, but also all over social media, right? And I've mentioned this on my page that I was aware of the severity of the issues, and I knew that yes, in South Asian households there was a lot of anti-Blackness, what do you want to call them? Concepts, ideology, whatever you want to call them, right? That they existed, right? These, that it was very prevalent, right? And now we're seeing more that a lot of it was internalized biases too, that we've grown up with and things that we've been conditioned with. And so it's a lot of dismantling of layers, right? And it's so, sorry, I'm just at a loss of words, because I'm just like, it's so fitting that everything's just happening now, that there's all this protest, and there's this, like I said, uproar to finally tell people that, South Asians are here for Black Black lives. We care for the Black lives, right? And we're here for all the Black people. And so hearing these stories, Smita, like yours, because you've experienced it and you've gone through that, being in that household where, you know, your parents had this misconception of your husband or of your boyfriend at the time. A lot of households are probably still experiencing that, right? So, what advice would you have for couples who are still going through these troubling times?
Yeah, I would say that you only have this one life,
Mm.
and you do not want to live it for someone else, even if it's your parents.
Yeah.
Okay, your parents are wonderful and they have raised you and they're very important in your life. But sometimes the people that have raised you don't know what's the best for you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say, sometimes even they need time to learn and to grow, and there's no reason to hate them, but they just need time to grow. And if you should follow your heart and pursue the person that you really love and who you feel like you're meant to be with.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm so glad that I did that, you know, and I didn't, to be very honest, I broke up with him like 100 times. Okay. But eventually I was like, you know what, this doesn't make sense. You
Yeah.
know? um, this, what we're conditioned to believe is a product of many, many generations
Yeah.
before, and they weren't always right. They're all learning, they're all growing, and sometimes you are the one that is going to teach them, you
Yeah.
know? And so
Yeah.
I felt like I'm the one, my parents are wonderful people, but I'm the one that taught them a different way,
Yeah.
and they're better for it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I stuck to it, you know? So I think as much as you love and respect and adore your family, it doesn't change if you choose the person you love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's so beautiful. That's so well articulated, Smitha.
I've
Thank.
had a lot of time to think about it.
Oh man, and like Richa, and we're also navigating through this too, right? We're trying to figure out like the balances with raising our babies, right? With we have our Indian or South Asian culture, then we have the white culture. We're just trying to intertwine the two. And so, Richa, what's your experience been like?
So it's been interesting because, I guess it also depends on the person you marry, right? So when you think you're marrying into a different race, you're thinking, okay, I need to learn a whole new different way of life and all of that, right? And I actually find that I didn't have to do too much learning because I'm Canadian, right? So I kind of know this way of life.
Mm-hmm.
This is his way of life too. But he's been doing a lot of learning and it's been interesting for him. And he's really interested in learning.
Mm-hmm.
What are our festivals? What are our holidays? What are our rituals? And whatever, the family is practicing and things like that. So that's been interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I just find that I've been pleasantly surprised because growing up, you always hear from everyone around you, you don't want to marry outside of your own caste, creed, color, race, blah, blah, blah. Like even like down to like some religion sect,
Yeah, it's true.
right? Religion, you can't even marry a different sect within that religion, right? So when you hear that and you're told the argument is you'd have so much adjusting to do, you'd have so much learning to do, and you would just struggle, and every step of the way is just going to be so hard. And I actually think that that's what makes the relationship more beautiful.
Yeah.
And the more you have to learn every step of the way, the more you actually bond with your partner.
Mm-hmm.
If you grew up in the same kind of environment, there's a lot of assumptions, there's a lot of things that you just have to take for granted that you don't talk about. So I actually prefer the challenge. I think it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to raising the baby, then there's questions about where should we live? From a location standpoint, I want her to have Indian options of extracurricular activities. Like if she
Yeah.
wants to do Bollywood dance, I want her to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things like that, right? So that kind of limits where we're going to be living, right?
Mm-hmm.
Culturally as well, the whole respect your elders thing is a big thing in Indian culture, right? And in his culture, it's very much like, no, you command respect. Like you
Yeah.
only respect somebody who commands respect from you, right? You don't automatically give people respect, right? So it's little things like that that I think we're going to be broaching along the way. And
Mm-hmm.
without getting too messy, religion is another thing that we talk about, right?
Yeah.
That's a whole nother, like, he comes from an atheist family. I came from a Hindu family that's not really a practicing Hindu family.
Mm-hmm.
So I still believe that spirituality there's a role for it, for a child to have a belief in something that's greater than their parents. If God forbid your child loses the parents, what do they believe in, right? So this is the kind of stuff we talk about, and it's probably like really far out there.
No, but it's good to have these conversations because I come from the same sort of background, Richa. Like my mom's Sikh, my dad's Hindu, so those are the two religions that my brother and I grew up in, and we were very much exposed to going to the mandir and going to the gurdwara. And then I married a Catholic man, right? And so he was baptized when he was a baby. So as soon as we had our first, that was one of the first questions was, when are you going to baptize Mia? And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't think I want to, right? And so we had to have those conversations early on. And something that him and I talk about a lot is that when we were dating, we didn't really notice these differences at the time, right?
Yeah.
And I don't even truly think that we knew what we were getting ourselves into. I don't know if Smitha, you agree to that, or Richa, like and it's because a lot of it comes back to like culturally where we come from, right? Because we have been immersed in our South Asian culture so much. Yes, we are Canadian. I'm a Canadian born, and I grew up here, and I'm a part of the system here, but I also fall into this category of I'm that first generation, right? So, so I know, and I've been hearing this a lot, that there's questions of identity, like who are we? Are we really South Asian? Are we really Canadian, right? And yes, my citizenship says I'm Canadian, but I also have to remember that my parents are continuously questioning me, like, okay, are you coming to this puja? Are you coming to this, bhat? Are you like participating in this? And are you participating in that? And I'm not a religious person either. I'm more on the spiritual side. I'm with you, Richa. But it's a balancing act of always kind of like, okay, I gotta please my parents too.
Yeah, and it's tricky.
Yeah.
And I think like and just to kind of go back to Smith's point about we teach our parents.
Mm-hmm.
Like my parents have always said that to me as well. It's like, we're learning from you. We are like learning along the way. We didn't know how to be parents, and we're learning from you. You teach us how to be your parent, right? So, and I'm finding it now being a parent. I'm in that situation as well, right?
It's true.
Yeah, I mean, my husband grew up Baptist.
Yeah.
And I grew up Hindu. Neither of us is very religious, but I didn't even have to think about that because he kind of just integrated into my whole culture and religion. Like, he knows more about my culture than I do.
Oh.
I mean, my parents will call him about like Navratri, like
Really?
I was just like, wait, you've already planned for that? Like, I mean, so luckily I lucked out that way because I mean, he integrated into my culture so much that I didn't have to worry about that. Like, but I mean, obviously, I'm very open to everything they do in his culture. But the thing is, like, he just adapts, and you need someone that is able to adapt and be open to new things with you. I think that's very important. You can't have someone just really, very rigid in their traditions and someone who is rigid in their traditions, that relationship will not fly very well.
Yeah, it won't sustain for sure.
Mm-hmm. And that is like with regardless of what race you are, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. There has to be a level of like understanding and compromise and adapting to, right? And I'm finding that with like, okay, adapting to like, you know, the cultures, and my husband's French Canadian too. So there's a lot of like particular, you know, things that they do very differently. It's really funny. I actually wrote about this in one of my blog posts, and it was a story where we had all gone out for breakfast. So I think Matt and I were dating at the time. Anyway, so we're at breakfast and it's at my parents' house. And my mom takes out, we're having pancakes. My mom takes out the Aunt Jemima, like store-bought syrup. And Matt looks at me and he's like, you guys don't eat pure maple syrup? And I was like, what's pure maple syrup, you know? So Smith, I'm so sorry. This is like a pure, like, I'm sure you, but you know that like from Toronto, yeah. Like you lived in Toronto, you know this. So it's all about like, yeah, but it's all about like the Canadian maple syrup, right? Like they're so like, especially I find in the French culture, like they're really big on that. And he was almost like offended, like, why? Like, you guys are buying like store bought, like that's not right. And anytime we go out for breakfast now, and like, you know, he orders pancakes and they bring like, you know, the little packaged ones, and it's like, he's like, forget this. This isn't the real. This isn't the real maple syrup. So, anyways, there's little quirks like that we just kind of find along the way, and I don't think we could have ever planned for like, okay, we have to, you know what we're going to do for this situation and for that situation. It kind of just like comes as we're going through life together.
And I feel like that's even more exciting.
Yeah, it is.
It sparks discussion, it sparks growth,
Yeah,
learning.
yeah. Oh yeah,
Never a dull moment, right?
Never ever. So you know what, I'm loving this conversation, and I'm loving everything about this connection. I am so, again, I can't stress enough how happy I am that we've all connected and we've been able to talk offline a lot about many things. I think our first telephone conversation lasted over an hour, and we just didn't even know because we were just going on and on. And I feel like even this, I'm like looking at the time, I'm like, oh shit, like we're almost like at that hour mark. And I'm like, but it happens so naturally and so organically. And that's what I truly appreciate. So thank you to the both of you for taking the time out and sitting down and having this conversation with me.
Thank you as well. This has been so delightful.
Yeah.
So fun.
I know. That's what I love. I love how this is so fun, and we don't even truly know each other yet. Like wait till we actually all get together in one room, and you know, we were saying this right before recording. Richa and I are really determined to go to LA and visit Smita. So
I have room. Come.
Yeah. So count us in. We will make that happen.
We'll
it's
be there.
safe to do so.
Do it.
Yeah.
No social distancing about time.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. We'll have to plan for that. I can't wait for that moment. So thank you again. And again, also thanks for all of the amazing work that the two of you are doing. I'll be sure to share all that on this platform, and also have you both come back and talk more about the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.